welcome to Room to Evolve. I'm Jessica Goulding. These episodes are here as sources of inspiration to help you notice what might be calling you into something new, even if, or especially if, it doesn't make any sense. When there's a stirring in your heart or a nervousness in your belly, I hope you pause and notice. I hope you enter into a little inquiry around what that might be. It doesn't matter if you're in your 20s, just figuring things out, or right in the middle of building your life, or even on the other side of retirement, wondering what's next. Following those inner nudges can lead us to scary thresholds, yes, but also a more colorful and fulfilling life and purpose. It might not always look grand on the outside, but when it comes from something deep within you, it's exactly enough. These are the lessons I've taken seriously over the last few years, and our guest today has a lot to do with that. Before I tell you a little story about what happened when we met, I want to invite you to visit roomtoevolve.com. This new website is where I'm hosting my weekly blog, this podcast, videos you can practice with, and invitations to events, pilgrimages, and yoga retreats. I created it not just to be a website, but a place, a room where you can step out of the noise and into a quiet space. It's connected to Substack, and I hope you decide to subscribe. That way, you'll receive weekly reflections right in your inbox, along with future posts and resources available only to subscribers. So come on in and say hello by subscribing to Room to Evolve. It's a sanctuary for you and other like-hearted folks to tune out the noise and tune into your spirit. Now, let me tell you about how I met our guest. I met Nancy Herlin at an Enneagram personality typing workshop in 2017. At the time, I had just had a strange experience on a nature walk that left me with what I thought was a ridiculous question. But Nancy's confident response opened up a whole new spiritual world for me, simply by validating my experience. Here's what happened. Perhaps something like this has happened to you too. I was walking my dog, a very sweet and curious little red heeler named Leela, along the Greenbelt Trail behind our house. We had only lived there a short time, and life felt like it was humming along nicely. Our restaurant was doing well, our kids were healthy. It felt like we were on top of the world. During the walk, I came into a small clearing, and I immediately felt like there was something special about that spot. I took out my AirPods and just stood there for a moment in the natural silence. At some point, I felt this desire to reach out and hold the delicate branch of a tree growing beside the path. As I held the branch, I felt myself become very grounded, very present, almost as if I had plugged into that little patch of earth. Then something unexpected happened. I had this very clear thought, almost like a voice or a message that did not originate with me. It came through so clearly that I actually stopped and looked around. And the words were, "Do not be afraid." That's it. Do not be afraid. So naturally, I was immediately a little afraid. What was I supposed to be afraid of? Life was good. The hardest part of opening a restaurant was behind us. We had just bought this great house. Everything seemed better than it had ever been. So why would I be afraid? What was going to happen? Well, eventually, after getting no answers to my follow-up questions, I decided to accept the moment simply as connection. I tucked the phrase into a little pocket of my mind for safekeeping, which I did indeed need later on. But at the time, I was just still very curious about this whole business of talking to a tree. So when I started to share the story with my group at the Enneagram workshop, I asked what felt like a silly and ridiculous question: is it possible to talk to a tree? Without missing a beat, Nancy Herlin said, yes, you can absolutely talk to trees, and sometimes they even answer. I mean, what a gift. Since then, I've continued widening my acceptance of how the divine might reach us. I keep releasing doubt and opening to wonder. This is what time in nature can do. It can call us into depth, quiet, wisdom, and enchantment. It can open us to messages and communication through sacred places and spaces all around us. Our guest today is the perfect person to speak with about sacred places and sacred spaces. Nancy Herlin is a spiritual director certified through the Stillpoint Center for Christian Spirituality, where she also serves on faculty. She works with individuals and groups in both spiritual direction and eco-spiritual direction. She is also a Veriditas-certified Labyrinth Facilitator and a commissioned centering prayer presenter through Contemplative Outreach. Nancy is most alive when she can hold a holy space for others to listen for God's voice in their lives, and when she spends time with her 6 grandchildren who remind her of her essence. So let's pause for a moment. Wherever you are, take a slow, deep breath in and a long breath out. And notice where you are. Notice what is around you. Tap into a sense of presence in this moment, in the space, right where you are. And as you're there, let's begin. Welcome, Nancy Herlin, to Room to Evolve.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I'm excited to speak with you again. So, in case listeners aren't aware, we had a great conversation back at one of my previous podcasts, Ready, Get Centered, Go. And you talked to us all about centering prayer. And so I highly recommend going back and listening to that and getting a sense of the practice of centering prayer that Nancy leads and that I have the fortune of being led by. And we could talk about so many things with you, spiritual direction and centering prayer again, or any number of great gifts that you bring. But today I wanted to talk about the Five Oak Ranch. I wanted to talk about sacred places and sacred spaces because I see you have a gift of bringing the world that you're in, the natural world, into a sense of spirituality. And actually, that is one of the questions that maybe we could start with. In your biography, it lists eco spiritual direction. So maybe could you tell us first what spiritual direction is, and then maybe a little bit about eco spiritual direction?
Sure, I'd love to. So, spiritual direction is an ancient practice of coming alongside another person and helping them to hear the holy, the divine in their life, to notice those places where they might not be noticing it, and also to help with people when they are in a phase of discernment and not knowing quite what the next step is, helping sit with them in that liminal space, listening to their deeper longings, which, if they're paying attention to God, are God's deeper longings for them too. And so, eco-spiritual direction is a way of listening that includes the non-human others, that we have a kinship out there. And that if God created everything, God created the animals, God created the earth, that goodness is there and present, and that relationship is already there. That conversation that's going on between God and us is there but we might not see it. We might not feel it. And eco-spiritual direction is a way to go out on the land and listen. What might it be saying?
I had no idea that that's so much what we do. When I have the fortune of being on your property, that's what we do, and it gave me the gift of seeing my property that way too. I remember bringing in a little cardinal nest from my rose bushes, and it was an empty nest, and it happened at the same time that we were launching our second child out to college. And it was this little gift of from nature, and it was an acknowledgement. And is that the kind of thing that
Yes. I don't know if I've told you this story, but I was waiting for a phone call from my son to tell me about whether or not they heard a heartbeat when his wife was pregnant. And I went out that morning to take care of the chickens. And on my way, there was on the sidewalk, I noticed this stick, and I actually have it here because I brought it out for somebody else. I noticed this stick, and it was so unusual. I'm going to just put it up here for you. It was
the shape of a
a
Y?
Y, yes. And it had great lichen on it. So I picked it up thinking, oh, this is really interesting. I went back to the house and I had missed a call from my son. And he said, Mom, they didn't hear a heartbeat. And I said, what? And he said, they heard two. And
Yeah.
so the earth already had that knowledge. The earth knew and shared that with me ahead of time. And then he confirmed it when he called me.
Wow. And you are open to seeing these things. And I mean, I believe that it's talking to us all the time. Nature, our spaces around us. We're in constant conversation, but we're not necessarily great noticers or listeners.
Right, right. That's the key. We have to get out of our own way to be able to join the conversation that's already going on from the very beginning of time.
And when we sit in spiritual direction, it seems like you are acting as kind of the mirror and helping that person see what's right in front of them. It never feels like you're imposing your will or imposing your thoughts. It's just saying, well, there's a empty nest there, and also your empty nesters. What might that be?
Yes, I liken it to being a midwife,
Oh,
assisting with the birth of something new.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that's true. So speaking of something new,
Yes.
tell us the story about moving to Five Oak Ranch, where you live now,
Mhm.
and then how it became a retreat center. In this podcast, I like to talk about receiving calls where you don't really understand why you're doing it. I have a lot of that of like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but here we go. So maybe there's some call going on in there. Maybe there are just some little arrows pointing the way, like the stick you just referred to. What's our
Yeah.
story of Five Oak Ranch?
Yeah. When I was thinking about it, I thought about something someone told me one time that a sign of God is being led to a place you did not intend to go. And so we were living in Austin, central Austin, and we had talked off and on, my husband especially, about getting some land, building a place, and it just never felt right. And then it was early 2013 where I think I started feeling nudges, like it might be time, but it didn't make sense. It wasn't logical. We were taking care of his aging parents, and they lived nearby. And then one morning I woke up and I felt this, all I can really say is whoosh, like, and it was move. And so my husband said, okay, I'm in, let's do it. And so we began looking. We wanted about 5 acres. And one day I left off the upper limit on the search and we found this place. And it
Um,
was really, once we toured the land, I saw my husband. He was very excited about it. And I thought, well, before we even saw the houses, I noticed his excitement and I felt drawn to a specific area as we were driving through the property. And I asked the realtor to stop and I climbed up this hill and it was full of brambles and debris, and there were vines choking the trees. And yet I felt something there. I felt a presence, some kind of sacred space. And that's what really sealed it for me. We went back up and looked at the houses, and they were just houses. There wasn't anything there that really called to me, but I thought I could live there. And so we moved there in 2013. And We named it Five Oak Ranch because of the majestic oak trees, which I know you've seen. And there were five in our original family. And we held a simple ceremony. We had someone bless the house, and we went around to each corner and we said, God, help us use this property, having no idea what that would mean. We just prayed that. Interestingly, 2 years later, after we moved there, I went back to that area and my husband and I said, okay, let's clean this up. And we had to get an arborist in to cut out the vines that were choking the trees. And when we were done clearing it all, I stood in the center and was surrounded by five oak trees. And only then did we see what was already there. Yeah,
It was cleared away,
it
and you
was
cleared it
clear.
away. Yeah.
And we cleared it away. It was there. And it was later that we learned that the Tonkawa had lived in this on part of this land. We found artifacts, we found arrowheads, and so perhaps that was the presence that I felt in that space.
A long
I don't know.
presence. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you always been open to hearing nudges and feeling calls, or is this something that kind of evolved within you?
I have always been this way.
Mhm.
And when I learned about the Enneagram, and that my particular personality type that I most resonate with is a highly intuitive person. And as I work toward more wholeness and balance in myself, that higher emotional center can even be opened more to be able to just feel these things and know these things. Yeah.
And you're able to speak freely about it with the people in your life. It's you're out in the open with your
I'm
gifts.
out in the open, yes.
So that's kind of one of the miracles or unexpected things that happened as you were, discovering essentially what this property had to offer. And you put out the prayer of, may we use this space. So can you tell us a little bit about the evolution of what came next?
Mm. So as I was thinking about it, I thought we were simply changing houses. But I realized over time that there was something that was changing about me after we moved into this place. Something that, like, I felt like I was coming home to a part of myself that I had lost. And I think living on the land rekindled this connection I had with the earth. I was one of those kids that climbed trees, made forts in the woods, stayed out till I heard that bell for dinner. And so I had kind of forgotten that there was a big part of me that connected to the outdoors. And so being on this property, hearing the rooster crow, being with the cycle of the earth and watching all of its changes, being able to see stars at night, the quiet of the dusk, all those kinds of things um, made me remember. So I wasn't starting something new. I was remembering a piece of myself that this place was rekindling. And I think the first part of creating this center was the Labyrinth building. And that happened in 2018. So we'd been on the land for 5 years and had been doing various things. And I remembered that longing that I had that from the 90s about labyrinths and how much they had meant to me. And I walked them wherever I went. And I thought, we have space. Maybe I could build a labyrinth. And my husband, who is always encouraging, said, why don't you? And so we did. And interestingly, I thought the labyrinth was going to go on the Five Oak area in the center among all those majestic oaks. And when I got there and sat there, the land said no.
Interesting.
And so then I moved to another space and I felt like the land said, yes, this is where it needs to be.
And when you say feel it, like in your stomach, in your bones, in your brain, in your,
Just in the center of my being.
and yeah, I see you kind of stroking your torso, just like there it is,
There it
the
is.
feeling.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm. And then I think that when that place was built, that in some ways was a marking, a symbol of the fact that I felt like this whole place was sacred.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When you saw the labyrinth there, you realized, is that,
I realized, yeah,
yeah.
that um, this place evokes this sense of quiet and stillness and prayer, that God's presence is here in various and different ways. And I wanted to honor that. I wanted to keep that. We are a wildlife. We have a wildlife exemption, but we are a wildlife center, and so we do a lot of things to protect and to encourage the wildlife, the land, the creek, in its for its natural state. And
Yeah, when I
um,
think of it, I think of the 200, 400-year-old tree. How old is the grandfather tree?
he's about 450. So Jessica, he's been around since the mid 1500s. And I think often about how many stories this tree has heard, how many people have been there, and yet this tree continues to hold its space, to hold us with its roots. Yeah,
And covers us with its canopy, and it feels like snuggling into a womb to be under that tree.
it does.
It's really something. And then the beautiful creek and the field nearby, like everything has its own energy, its own invitation.
Yes.
Here you might want to sit, there you might want to lie in the grass, you might want to feed the fish. There's bees, right? So there's honey and sweetness being created right on the property.
Yeah.
And then this amazing labyrinth. It's
Yeah.
such a beautiful space. One time you've mentioned warming it up. And
Yeah.
so, because there's labyrinths all over the world. And I think there has been waves of excitement of people putting labyrinths in places, maybe at hospitals and libraries and churches and parks. And then what seems to kind of happen is then they get a little forgotten. If someone's not there to facilitate or to remind people that it exists, they can kind of go almost dormant energetically. That's been my experience when I visit one. I'm like, oh, we gotta kind of wake you up a little bit and make you sparkle. But I know that thought probably came from listening to you talk about warming yours up. What do you do with your labyrinth? What do you sense of its energetic flow of its own when you go out there each day?
Oh, yeah. It sure does have its own energy. Some days I feel it very strongly, other days it's quiet, more quiet. But if I know I'm going to take a group through it or an individual is going to walk through it, I will go out and I will walk it myself and essentially warm it up, sort of stir or move the energy and the flow inside the labyrinth. And I think that helps.
Yeah, do you have any practices or prayers that you do, or it's just the simple walking that opens it enough?
Usually it's a simple walking.
Hmm.
Sometimes I will walk the whole perimeter before enter the labyrinth as well.
I love to do that. I really find it's like opening a jar
Mm.
where you kind of open it up and say, okay, let's it or stirring the pot, like let's invite wisdom to come in. Because I mean, isn't that so often what happens when we walk a labyrinth is the mind has a chance to settle and we open to the kind of wisdom that you seem to be able to gain, in wherever you are. But for a lot of us, having a certain place
Hmm.
is helpful for
Hmm.
these downloads.
Right, right. A sacred place. Yeah.
Yeah. How would what makes something sacred in your mind?
Um, I would say it's just a place that's set apart, some place where mystery happens, where there's a sense of depth. Perhaps time has a different quality to it. A place where um, I would say God speaks to us.
Mm, yeah.
Um, and there's a certain comfort in that space. Uh, yeah. And I think that the stillness is always there, and we need reminders to get there. And so to have a sacred space, which could be anywhere or anything, um, is important to get us to that place of stillness. Yeah.
Yeah, I think anybody can create and make sacred places wherever they are. You
Mhm.
know, even just lighting a candle, then that it's set aside. I think of it
It's
as
set aside.
set aside with intention. And it's somehow that intention kind of Im imbues itself, if that's the right word, to that area and it can build. You know, like I've heard other people mention, and I feel the same, that if I meditate every day on the same chair, then the chair has the energy of the meditation and I sit in it and my body goes, oh, okay, that's what we're doing. Okay. You know, it
Hmm.
just, the repetition can help with making a place sacred, showing up again and again with care
Yeah.
and intention and openness.
And I think not only do we pick the sacred things, the sacred places, they pick us.
They pick us.
They pick us. I feel like this place picked us.
Hmm. How many acres is it anyway? Is
It's 26.
wow.
It's 26.
And
Yeah, and I think the sacredness unfolds over a period of time. It's not just sometimes it's, like it's not sacred and then all of a sudden it is. It is the relationship. It's being with that. Yeah.
not unlike being with a person.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
And this place called us, and then there was so much going on. Um, I was thinking in 2019, I went to Ghost Ranch and I went to a program that helped me discern whether I wanted to become a spiritual director. And so I discerned, yes, I wanted to. And that, I mean, that was really a threshold for me for this place to become more than just our home. Because when I did my training, I started thinking, well, where am I going to practice?
Hmm.
Where will I see people? Whatever. And so soon after I began my training, COVID hit and everything got slower, right? While I was thinking about this morning. I was in formation for myself to be a spiritual director and to go deeper in my own spiritual life. At the same time, we decided to remodel this ranch house. And so the ranch house was in formation. Of course, it was an external formation, was being remodeled as well. And um, so I was being formed at the same time this place was also being formed into a retreat center. So I appreciate you asking me to be on here because I hadn't really thought about that before. And so during that season, during COVID, when everything was slower, that I felt the nudge more. I was engaging in a lot more spiritual practices. I was a lot more open to God's presence then as I was training. And I kept feeling these nudges like, this is an amazing place. You've enjoyed it. Your family has enjoyed it, but I think it needs to be shared. And I think I remembered that prayer from 2013.
Hmm.
It said, God help us use and share this place. Um, so we decided to do that, and step by step. There was no plan. This was not a dream. This was an evolution. This was a listening and changing. And I think about I had my thought about the way this house should be remodeled, and we would come to a place in the remodel and look at it and say, I don't think this is what this place is telling us it wants. And so we would pivot and change. And we had that luxury during that awful time to be able to go slowly and to let what was going to evolve evolve.
Yeah, as
Yeah.
you're describing it, I'm almost picturing like a flower opening. Like you can't push it, you can't pull it. It's just going to open and present, and then everybody can come and smell and enjoy, take in the fragrance or feel the petals. And, you know, also what you're saying about that midwife, like there was a lot of getting out of the way, even accidental that you switched, that you know, forgot to put in the outer limit of the size.
Yeah.
You know, that's a little divine wink. Just like,
Absolutely.
had you not? Had you not?
Absolutely.
Um, One of the things that you have said a few times here and in general, and something I've learned from you, is noticing things like symbolism and metaphor and what's happening in your life that kind of excavates or shows you something that's happening in you. So when you're engaging in doing this total redo of the house, and then you said, and also I was being remodeled. These kinds of things. Is that a lot of what happens in spiritual direction? And is it easy to see it for yourself? Or is it really helpful, do you think, to have somebody else mirroring that back? Do you get better at it as time goes by to see it? Is it like training an eye?
I would answer yes. That I think one gets better at it, but I also think it's important to have a guide. I've had a spiritual director for many years, and sometimes something that's not clear to me is so obvious with a simple question, and I think, oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
read one time I was in a spiritual direction group and I was talking about something, and the person who followed me said, you've used a lot of metaphor about water. Do you have access to water anymore? And I said, yes, I could go down and sit by the creek. And she said, go down and sit there and see what happens. And I sat down there, and the fish that are in the creek turned and sort of swam toward me. And I felt like they were welcoming me to the space. And I don't now remember what the issue that I brought to them was, but they answered it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because someone else was sitting there and heard something that I didn't hear.
There's something you alluded to earlier in this conversation about listening and being in the quiet so that we can listen. And that is something that I think continues to be a great gift of the group spiritual direction. So I'm in your group that you lead with a few other wonderful women. And it has really taught me about listening and hearing, not through what I think that should be done. Like it's not an advice circle, and it's not a circle where we're all just talking about our problems. It's really discernment, like you said. It's just, here's what's going on, and people are listening through a different lens. I don't know if you can listen through a lens, but that's how I think of it. Filter, maybe.
Hmm.
It's like, not what do I think is being said, but what is God saying to me through my own languaging that this person might benefit from hearing.
Yes. Yes.
And it was I tried it in a course that I'm just finished teaching today, actually, called Practice Through. Because as a teacher, I like to teach. And so usually when I have groups, then I like to give feedback or question and answers, or I'll tell them, also this, and this. And this was the first time that I just said, we're simply going to witness each other. So there wasn't any crosstalk. Someone afterwards, those who cared to stay, shared what their experience of the practice was. So we're doing meditations, we're doing centering practices, different ones each week. And just being in witness of each other changed the whole thing.
Mm.
We acknowledge today that usually when we listen, we're also trying to think of our response. And this is how kind of ourselves can get in the way, our ego who wants to be impressive with your feedback, impressive with your questions. It can get in the way. But if we're just listening and witnessing, like we do in the centering prayer group, then there's a depth of sharing that requires no extra information. It's just a beautiful witnessing. And as I'm talking, it's occurring to me that you were witnessing the land.
Yes.
The land is witnessing you. How
Yes.
has it been to facilitate those kinds of groups for you? Do you find it challenging like I do to hold back, or has that been an evolution in your practice as well?
It's definitely been an evolution because until I went to training for listening like this, I would be thinking about my answer. And there's an assumption that that we make, that we all have the wisdom we need. We all have that wisdom to be able to access that. Um, Requires listening without judgment, listening with openness and curiosity. And when one feels that, deeper things can emerge. Parker Palmer wrote a book called Let Your Life Speak. And in it, he talks about the soul, the human soul being like a wild animal. And one wouldn't go up to a wild animal and say, "Here I am, tell me this," or "I'm going to tell you something." One would slowly get to that wild animal and sit a while and listen. And so it would trust and be safe. And I think that when we listen from a place that the person has the wisdom, it allows the deeper soul to be able to emerge between people.
That is a beautiful image.
Mm.
I love that. Thank you. I'm gonna keep that one in my pocket. Well, Nancy, you've shared with us several different, you know, threshold moments that have come through building this amazing retreat center. First, who comes? Who comes to Five Oak Ranch?
Who comes? You know, it's interesting. I'm starting to ask that question. And believe it or not, there are quite a few people who come because they just do a search of retreat centers in Austin. And I'm just deeply aware that there are a lot of people who want a space to go, to be quiet, to listen, to turn inward. So a lot of times I get people come that I have no idea who they are. A lot of it is a word of mouth. So individuals who are really seeking that deeper connection with their source. See a lot of church leadership groups who come out for the day to plan because they want to actually have an experience of God in addition to planning for how they might help others have an experience of God. So, but we decided early on we are not renting it out as an Airbnb because we don't want to change the energy that is here. And we want people who are here to be here for a reason, and that is that they desire a deeper walk,
Mm.
to connect with their spiritual sides, to find a place that might help them in their path of transformation.
So individuals and groups, and there's
Mhm.
the farmhouse has beds, so one
Yes,
could stay overnight and
yes,
a full kitchen available. It
yeah.
is beautiful. I talked in my last podcast about walking with Divine Feminine
Oh, yeah,
and how we did that together there, and it was a beautiful event, and people come away with a lot from
yeah.
the experiences they have at Five Oak Ranch.
I loved doing yoga down at the creek. I don't go down to the creek and do yoga on my own. So thank you for that gift.
Oh, it was it's the perfect lawn for
Yeah.
yoga. Well, I'd love to close with a question that I'm asking all my guests, and that would be what a threshold moment for you that you would like to share. Maybe it's now, maybe it's something in the past. And I know just deciding to do the ranch was definitely one. But what comes to mind for you when you think of your threshold moment? A big one or a little
I
one?
am a vivid dreamer. I have a lot of dreams and I keep track of them. And um, I thought about this dream that I had. It was somewhere where we were living here. And I actually had never dreamed something like this before, but I was among a group of people and there was someone talking. There were all these people, a lot of people who were hurting either physically or emotionally. And I was there among them. And I saw in the distance someone who turned, and it was Jesus. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he said, "Whatever you do for the least of these, you do for me." And I was at a point where I was running a nonprofit, and I had an idea about what success was. And that success was lots of numbers. I don't know what success was, really big. And this dream made me just kind of stop and think, well, what is that? What is that success? In the worldly way, that's one thing, but in God's way, it's another. And it is to individually listen and to be with people and to hear their stories and help them in their ultimate transformation. And so it really made me pivot how I looked at what I did. And am I doing what I should be doing? Am I listening enough to God through my practices that what I'm doing is a reflection of what God wants me to do? Yeah.
And so deciding to make this change from what is success, you stepped into a different idea of success, it sounds like.
Yeah. You asked me one time, we were talking about how people come here. And I said, well, God's my marketer, right?
I love that. I love that so much.
And that is one of my challenges right now, is that we're pretty busy.
Mhm.
And so just balancing how much we allow to happen here for people and how much is the space is ours, and how do I balance the time I want to spend with my grandchildren who all live within 15 minutes of me, with working with others in this
Yeah.
on this spiritual work.
So that sounds like it's an everyday question.
It is an everyday balance question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, in my experience, you model it well. So I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, it was so fun to talk to you again. How might people find you? Is it going to your website the best way if they're just curious to see? Because there's beautiful photos there. There's some blogs that you have written about being in the space. Even just the website to me is a sacred space.
Oh, you're very kind.
Love
Yes.
it.
5oakranch.com. I don't do other social media because I just can't keep up with it.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. God's your marketer. You don't have to do
There you go.
it. Um, yes, and quiet Fridays sometimes come up where people
Yes,
can.
we have one in February. We have some spots left, and then we have one coming up in April. So if you go on the website, you'll find those.
Yeah, good. Thank you so much for giving us your time and conversations and your modeling of intuition and tuning in. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.